The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Be live in Hamilton, Ohio, but I'm here in Dayton. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. I'm Justin Kinner, and of course we have the usual cast of characters. We got Mr. Casey McAllister producing and leading the way, and then of course Elliot Rearing and Jacob Tissett. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome. Oh, look at that. Look at us.
Whoa! Wow.
See, this is the stuff you don't get when I'm in the producer's chair.
You get the little 3 box. It's the 3 rectangles.
That's big league.
It's the 3 rectangles.
So,
how about that?
Does Casey get camera time today?
Probably not.
Probably not.
No rambling today, Kenner.
You know, Casey just tries to take the show or hijack the show every time. That is not true, Casey. You're always welcome to ramble. You know, it's do what you got to do. I left the show yesterday, and then the Browns fire sale started. So there's that. I don't know what. I don't really know what to make about that. We'll get to that coming up around the corner. We're going to talk about the deadline coming up, a little buy or sell. College football. Dan Lanning, is he a genius? Jacob, I know we meant to get to that yesterday and didn't, so we'll get to that shortly as well. But the genius is what they're saying. Nonetheless. But yeah, so smart. But hey, before we get into all of that, let's kick off the show with a little Elliot's headlines.
Oh!
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
How about that? Right on time.
Big time.
Headlines: the Guardians and the Yankees, they played last night. For those of you who missed it or didn't want to watch it, they've taken a commanding lead now. They lead 2-0 in that series after a 6-3 win.
Go
yesterday.
Yankees. Yes, let's go. Go Yankees. Yeah.
You're the only person in the Midwest. Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole went 4 1/3 innings, allowing 2 earned runs while striking out 4. Wasn't a great outing from him, but it was enough to get the win. Luke Weaver came in and closed it out, but did give up his first earned run in his last 18 innings of work on a Jose Ramirez home run. Aaron Judge hit his first home run of the postseason as well. There was 3 college football games apparently last night.
That's right.
That's crazy. Troy, they fell to South Alabama 25-9. Kennesaw State, they fell to 0-6, or they fall to 0-6 after losing 14-5. 14-5 to Middle Tennessee State. And New Mexico State beats Louisiana Tech 33-30 in double overtime. I don't even want to try to imagine what channels those were on. One of them had to have been ESPN, and then I don't know about the others.
I think a lot of them are ESPN Plus.
That's ESPN Plus.
But that's the thing. If you're sitting down on say a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or any night during the week for the next, I think, 48 days,
sure,
and you think there's not football on, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
So there's football on for, I think, right around the next 50 days.
Good.
And NHL those teams, real quick, those sound like those amazing teams in March that everyone pulls for, right? That
South Alabama's offense is
sick.
Major Applewhite's their head coach now, old Alabama quarterback, and they turn it up in the Sun Belt.
How about that? NHL news from last night. The Wild beat the Blues 4-1. Philip Gustafsson scored the 18th goalie goal in NHL history. I didn't know there's only been 18 goalie goals. It makes sense.
That's cool, though.
It makes sense, but I thought there would surely be more than 18. The Capitals, they defeat the Golden Knights 4-2 as Alex Ovechkin collected his 700th NHL assist. The Blue Jackets, they paid tribute to Johnny Gaudreau in their home opener last night. Unfortunately, they did lose to the Panthers 4-3. The Oilers, they win 4-3 over the Flyers, but the Flyers have a teenage rookie. He scored his first 2 NHL goals in a 5-minute span last night. Those are your NHL news headlines. And the NFL, as Kinner kind of alluded to.
Was this Philadelphia rookie a situation where you're not even going to try to pronounce his name?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Do you want to try it?
I don't know what it is.
Here, let me find it on my phone, and I'll let you try it.
I just found it funny that you very
correct. I was
very conscientiously left it at Philadelphia rookie.
So I'm going to pull out his name, and,
Okay.
if you can get it, you can say it. So here we go. It says right there on the top headline. Go ahead.
All right.
Give that a try.
All right. That is MM.
Yeah.
Would be the initials. I think his nickname is whatever his number is.
Sure.
MM, and then Matvey Mikhkov.
Yep. So do you see why I didn't try to read that one?
That's fair. No, that's fair.
Moving on, Kenner alluded to it. Amari Cooper traded to the Buffalo Bills for a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. Browns ship over a 6th-rounder that I don't think was even theirs. I think it was the Lions. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry. But that is the big blockbuster trade immediately following the Devontae Adams trade news from yesterday. So those are pretty much it. Those are your headlines. Not a busy day yesterday. There is baseball today. The Mets and the Dodgers are back at it for Game 3. The series is tied 1 apiece. Ken, are you sad that you guys get worse by the day, you guys being the Browns?
No, I look at
by
this
the way,
as addition.
Go ahead.
No, addition by subtraction, dude. He leads the league in drops. Get his ass out of here. We have a higher standard than guys who drop those passes, man.
Now he's going to like his quarterback. So
he's going to catch everything.
Careful. You better be careful.
Look, I'm not surprised by this, too. He was very unhappy. He was disgruntled coming in. I didn't think he was that disgruntled. I think this more has to do with how bad the offense is, how bad Deshaun Watson has been. I think he stopped supporting Deshaun Watson, which is what it sounds like a lot of guys are doing in that locker room. Bottom line is, it's at the end of the day for the Cleveland Browns to have a receiver that is one of the league leaders in drops, to be able to trade him out for a 3rd-rounder, I think that's pretty damn good. Now, I'm not spinning this. This is a result of things falling apart in Cleveland. I'm not spinning it. This is not a good thing, but considering the circumstances, to take Amari Cooper and turn him into a 3rd-rounder when years ago when he was in the midst of his prime, you only gave up a 5th-round pick to get him. The Browns traded a 5th-round pick to the Cowboys to acquire him a few years ago, and now while he's leading the league in drops and statistics bad this season, they were able to maximize the urgency of the Bills and get a 3rd-rounder in return for him. They salvaged that situation, but it doesn't fix anything right now because obviously draft picks are key. I was expecting a 5th-rounder, maybe less than that, honestly, with how bad it's been. But I'll take the return. It just doesn't fix anything in the immediate future. Makes it worse heading into this game. I was like, could they just waited one more week? Could we just wait 1 more week? But it is what it is. 1-5. 1-5.
Interesting that after yesterday, both Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams traded for 3rd-round picks. And over the summer, Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, who's constantly praised for all of his moves, traded a 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who has been very bad this year.
That's tough.
Friendly reminder that the last 2 big-time, quote-unquote big-time, moves that Howie Roseman has made, the signing of Devin White, that was going to change that defense. He was going to overhaul that linebacker room, an absolute stud, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no. Howie Roseman just continues to sign and trade for guys whose name he recognizes from draft night, and they all continue to fail.
That's a bummer. But I'll tell you what. Good for Cleveland. It seems like they're tanking the season. They're going to try to lose out here and try to get a better draft pick.
Sure.
I think that should be the play. Just like people are going to get mad at the Deshaun continues to play, and they should because he's not a good quarterback. But I do think if that's the play, we'll just let him be as bad as possible, and we'll benefit from that in the draft. I think that's not a bad strategy for what it's worth. It's a tough division. There's really no light in sight. You get Nick Chubb back this week. But at the end of the day, do you believe in the Cleveland Browns offense? No. It's clear that the front office doesn't. It's clear that ownership doesn't, and they're just riding out this storm that they have created for themselves.
I don't know if, and people keep asking, the fire sale begins. I don't know if it is. Like, I think he was disgruntled, and I'm not saying that there's guys that are happy in that locker room. You're 1-5. You shouldn't be. But I don't know if this was, and it seems like a lot of Browns reporters, they're not sure either. They're not sure if this is the start to a fire sale or if this was just a situation where you had to try to salvage this. Let me be clear. You should not have got a 3rd-rounder for Amari Cooper. I still wonder if there's some guys that they're dangling out there just to see what the value is, as you should at this point at 1-5. I think the second the Bills were desperate enough, and I think that's a lot to give up for Amari Cooper. I'm happy with the return from a Browns perspective, but they took advantage of the desperation of the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if it's a start to a fire sale or not, more so than it was, oh, you're going to give up a 3rd? For Amari on a season like this, when he's one of the league leaders in drops, I think it was more of that than the start to a fire sale. Now, by the time this re-airs in Dayton later today, there could be 2 more pieces moved on from by Cleveland.
Yep.
Who knows? I'm not ready yet to say it's the start to a fire sale, because I think this was more of an isolated, disgruntled situation versus, all right, we're just going to unload on everybody. We'll see what happens.
But do you think the narrative in Cleveland is that they want a fire sale or that they want to keep fighting for this season? What do you think?
I think that.
Go ahead.
No, re-ask your question.
Do you think that the narrative in Cleveland right now, and that's just the fan base, what everybody's thinking about Deshaun Watson, do you think that city wants them to move on from everybody? They just want to reset everything so they can get through this Deshaun Watson nonsense and then get their franchise back? Or do you think they want to keep? Or do you think they want to keep fighting?
I think they want to keep that, and I know from my perspective, I want them to do everything they can to keep that defense intact. A lot of people think Myles Garrett's going to be next up. I will say, if you're the Browns, I take the call from the Lions. I see what they're desperate enough, not desperate, but like how urgent are the Lions about getting a big-time pass rusher in there? Are they willing to unhaul some stuff to get it? I look at the Houston Texans, who have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and they're a Super Bowl contender. Imagine what a Myles Garrett can do in Houston. Houston can spend the money on Myles Garrett. They have the draft capital to do it, thanks to Cleveland, right? Like, is Cleveland willing to do another deal with the Houston Texans to send Myles Garrett over there? If they can get a haul, I think that they entertain it. But I do think the feeling in Cleveland is, amongst Browns fans, try to do everything you can to keep that defense intact. Couple moves in the offseason can fix the offense. However, I have no clue what the hell the plan is for Deshaun. This idea that we can't sit him is ridiculous. Oh, because of the fully guaranteed money. That actually makes it pretty simple. You're going to pay him no matter what, so you might as well just bench his ass, deal with his unhappy personality, and at least give yourself a chance. This idea that you have to play him because you paid him so much, that's ridiculous. If you have to pay him no matter what, you may as well just say, fine, we're going to pay you to get out of our way. All right, we're going to pay. You're not starting. We're just paying you to stay out of our way so that Jameis Winston, hell, I wish they would have just stuck with Joe Flacco. I said that when they didn't bring Flacco back. I thought that was a mistake for this very reason. But I hate that excuse of they have to play him because of the fully guaranteed money. I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard from that perspective.
The sunk cost fallacy is the human nature to follow through with something that we've already invested heavily in, even when giving up is clearly the better idea. Seems like what's going on in Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, at this point, it's just to ride out the storm. And it's going to be bad for a couple years here, and you just got to deal with it because they're not going to bench him. And I know what you're saying, and I agree with it. But I also know how billionaires operate. And that billionaire in Cleveland is not going to let Deshaun Watson just take a free ride and take his $45 million a year or whatever that may be, whatever that number is, for the next couple of seasons. And just sit there and have a vacation in Cleveland. I don't think that's gonna fly. Whether or not it's the right decision or not, we all know it's the right decision at this point. Something's very, very wrong. There is now a giant culture problem in Cleveland when they didn't have that a year ago when Joe Flacco took over that offense and led them to the playoffs. I really do think that Amari Cooper is about to have a career year in Buffalo in the remaining 10, 11 games of this season. I think he's going to go off. And I think you're going to see what a player that is in a good situation with a good quarterback that has a chance to make the playoffs, you're going to see those drops disappear. I know you don't like that, and I get it. I understand it. There's no logical backing to my point on this, but it is not good in Cleveland right now, and it's evident by nobody really wanting to be there. No, as of right now, it's physical. It's not really a mental thing. It's a physical thing that's happening on the field where everyone's showing that they don't want to play right now. It's brutal, and Cleveland just has to get through it, I guess. I don't know. Good luck, Deshaun. And again, as I've said 3 times this week, Bengals must win this game. Must win the game. There is no excuse now to lose. Deshaun can't throw to anybody. How many catches has Jerry Jeudy had this year? Has he had 10 catches this season?
I mean, I don't know what the total is at this point, but it's probably not a lot of people have eaten not a lot of people. Yeah, see, double that production. But not a lot of people have eaten during this Deshaun run. And real quick on that too, I've defended the Haslams. I've still to this day, I know the results has been bad. I have no problem with the intent to go get Deshaun at the time that they did. No problem with it. None whatsoever. However, the dumbest decision ever is continuing to roll him out there just because we paid him and he's going to play. That, to me, because now you're putting him ahead of every single person in that locker room, and I don't blame one damn player if they want to get the hell out. You know, you got to put the Nick Chubbs, who are literally putting their bodies on the line for that city and for that franchise. Myles Garrett, who has been everything to that franchise. You know, you got the likes of a David Njoku and a Denzel Ward and some really good people / really, really good players, and you're telling those guys to hell with you? That's the problem I have. I have no problem with Cleveland at the time going to get Deshaun, because it's not. I mean, there's a lot of people that hoped this would happen. Not a lot of people that knew. There's nobody that knew that this would happen. A lot of people that hoped that this would happen. Well, it's happened, and now I'm going to judge you on how you change the course. And sticking with him makes no sense. Because Elliot, like you said, they've paid him. They're going to throw him out there. Well, they have him for 2 more years.
Yeah, I know.
Are they just going to start him for 2 more years? Like, I could see if it was just this year and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to ride it out. We're not going to put Jameis or anyone behind that offensive line. We're just going to let Deshaun go out there and play out the contract. It's 2 more years of this, 2.5 more years of this. At this point, just cut costs. Not cut costs, but just cut him. Get the hell out of the way. I'd rather lose with Jameis or attempt to win with Jameis than anything moving forward. We'll see what happens. But it's not a good situation. It's not a good situation. So this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. Again, Amari Cooper traded to the Buffalo Bills. The Cleveland Browns get a 3rd-round pick in return. Is it the start to a fire sale? We don't know, but not a good thing if you're Cleveland, especially heading into a divisional matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals coming up this weekend. From an outsider's perspective, Amari Cooper was traded yesterday. Devontae Adams was traded yesterday. Which of those moves was a bigger deal from a Bengals fan perspective? How do those moves impact the Cincinnati Bengals? Which one impacted them more? And how does those moves impact their pursuit of getting to the playoffs after a 1-3 start, now 2-4? We'll get to all of that when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister. I swear he's there. He's in the studio. Say hi, Casey.
Hi, guys. I'm here.
See, I told you. He's
right
there.
here.
He's there.
There we go.
Oh, look.
I'm just operating.
Look
back.
at
You look like you're sitting so low today. Look how low your head is on that frame.
I'm kind of slouched over a little bit. Got to perk up a little bit.
I shouldn't have exposed you to the radio listeners like that. They would have had no idea.
But we welcome you back. We got, of course, Elliot Rearing and Jacob Tissett. I'm here in Dayton, of course. We appreciate technology because we're able to do this while they're there and I'm here. And I'm sure everybody loves that.
Well, your computer is certainly working hard right now. That's for sure.
Is it back? Is it making the sound?
It hasn't left. It hasn't left. It's
been pretty
there.
Well, if we keep talking, it goes away, right?
That's
that
right.
How this works?
That's right.
I guess.
Or at least it drowns it out.
I guess.
All right, so from a Bengals fan perspective, you guys sat back yesterday. We kicked off the show yesterday with the Devontae Adams trade from the Raiders to the Jets. We talked about that yesterday because everyone's like, why are you guys spending so much time on the Jets? Well, I think the Jets are more of a concern for the Bengals than the Ravens at this point. I'm not saying that the Bengals have no chance of winning that division, but it would take the Ravens just falling off for that to happen because of the slow start for the Bengals at this point. I think that the Jets are going to be more of a team that Bengals fans need to keep an eye on from that perspective because I think that's who you're going to be battling it out with for one of those final 3 wild card spots. So I think that Devontae Adams trade was a big deal. But then the Buffalo Bills a little bit later on that afternoon, yesterday afternoon, they pull the trigger on a big deal, or at least we think. They send a 3rd rounder to Cleveland. They bring in Amari Cooper for a quarterback in Josh Allen who's been lights out but has no elite pass catchers. I don't know if Amari Cooper is an elite pass catcher at this point. Maybe it does. Maybe it's like what Elliott said. Wasn't elite in Cleveland this past season because of with all the drama with Deshaun. But from a Bengals fan perspective, Amari Cooper to Buffalo, Devontae Adams to the Jets, which one is more of a concern in the eyes of Bengals fans, do you think?
I think it's the Jets for a lot of the reasons that you just laid out there. I think Amari Cooper to the Bills is a massive trade, and I think it all but assures to me that the Bills are going to win the AFC East. I think he's going to be a great piece for them. I know they kind of downplayed the loss of Stephon Diggs this offseason and how they weren't worried about it because Josh Allen was going to be able to do Josh Allen things regardless of who his weapons were. But we've seen through the first 6 weeks that the lack of a wide receiver one has really hurt the Bills' offense. And they've been able to do a really good job and still win a lot of games. James Cook seems to have taken a big step in his career. Dalton Kincaid, a fairly consistent receiver after the first 2 weeks, putting up basically goose eggs. But the addition of Amari Cooper is going to take a lot of pressure off Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and allow those young players in fairly new positions. Obviously, they've always played wide receiver, but with the amount of targets and pressure on them to produce in that offense right now, this isn't something either of them were expected to do, Keon in his rookie year or Khalil Shakir, honestly, ever. He was the wide receiver 3 behind Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, and that's kind of where he was comfortable. And now they've asked him to be their 1 or their 1B, but the addition of Amari Cooper is going to put everyone in kind of a more comfortable role, and I expect the Bills to take off and win that division. And kind of like you said right there, I'm kind of looking past the AFC North now. I don't think the Bengals really have a chance at winning the AFC North. It would take something like an incredibly hot run and a moderate Ravens collapse to get back to that level. So I'm focused on the wild card. And with the Bills seemingly locking up the division with that trade, Devontae Adams to the Jets, that's a team I think is going to be right there in the wild card mix as well. Same record at 2-4. I think that's a team that the Bengals have to be watching pretty closely for the rest of the season, that they're going to be battling with for one of those 3 spots.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest one is the Amari Cooper to the Bills. The Bills aren't scary without a wide receiver. I think Josh Allen is a really good quarterback, a great quarterback, a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. But if you don't have anybody to throw to, it's hard for me to sit here and say that you're going to blow out teams, you're going to dominate. I think it was going to be a lot of wins, like how they fought against the Jets, close games. And I'm not saying that's bad. A win is a win in the NFL. But I'm saying there's no Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to dominate you. You're not going to have a chance. And that's how it's going to be. I don't think I would predict the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl without any pass-catching options. No disrespect to Shakir or Keon Coleman or whoever else they have back there. I just think this move solidifies them as a Super Bowl contender. That offense is now secure. They've got a really good running back, 2 really good running backs. And now you've got at least 2 really good wide receivers, not including Dalton Kincaid. I think the Bills are really, really good. I'm not concerned about the Jets yet. The offense still hasn't looked great. We'll see what Devontae Adams does. I'd imagine it certainly improves what's been going on in New York, but I'm not too worried about the New York Jets. I think the Bengals could beat the Jets if they played tomorrow. I'm not concerned. I don't know if they could beat the Bills as of right now.
Casey, I know, obviously, you're a big Bengals fan. When you hear those 2 trades that went down yesterday, which one, from a Bengals fan perspective, did you say, ooh, that's a problem? Devontae Adams to the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, and, of course, as we talked about, they're very good wide receiving core over there, arguably on paper one of the best in the NFL. And then the Bills, who aren't as flashy and sexy on paper, they go get Amari Cooper. Which one did you say, oh, damn, that's a problem from a Bengals perspective?
Ooh, that's a good question. Out of the couple trades that we had yesterday, I thought that the Devontae Adams one was a little bit of a problem, but I still don't think that's the big issue. Like, if I look at all the teams in the AFC right now, I'm not really worried about the Colts. I think we can go toe to toe with the Chargers. I'm not worried about the Broncos. Dolphins are pretty much out of it. That still leaves like a couple spots open. So even though the Jets did trade for Devontae, I'm not going to worry about either trade, to be honest with you. I already shoot in the Bills. I think a lot of people already shoot in the Jets earlier on in the season before they started at this 2-4 record that they have now. And I just think that the Bengals there's so many bad teams in the AFC that it just doesn't matter. I think yesterday was actually more of a win than it was a loss for them. I mean, getting rid of Amari Cooper for the Browns, say what you will. I know the Browns are 1-5, but that makes your offense worse. So I'll take that. I'll take an easier challenge this week than I would worry about the Jets, because that's a future problem, not a this week's problem.
Yeah, I agree with Casey. I think it's a win for the Bengals. Getting rid of their top, there being the Browns' top pass catching option, and I'm just looking at their wide receiver room: Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman. That's what we're rolling with, really. They haven't eclipsed 200 yards in a game, and then you're going 200 passing yards in a game, and now you're going to take away the top pass catching option. Nah, it's that offense is gone. It's abysmal. It can't be revived unless, of course, there's a switch at quarterback. And I think it just makes the Bengals' chances for these 2 games they play the Browns this season, it makes it even better.
Yeah, I look at Buffalo in this situation too, and I started looking at, so there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's only 7 teams that have a worse passing attack than the Buffalo Bills right now, just from a statistical standpoint. Now, at the end of the day, you have Josh Allen, right? And the Bills are able to get off to this 4-2 start with the deficiencies in the passing game, and it's not because of lack of talent from the quarterback. They need more pass catchers. Now, I look at Buffalo right now, 186 passing yards per game, and that's with Josh Allen at quarterback. Now, you add Amari Cooper there. It's not as if that number is going to explode, but I do think it opens up the offense. I think they're a very well-rounded team. I think the Jets are very well-rounded too. I find both the moves yesterday to be very interesting. I think it kind of, from the East standpoint, it kind of cancels one another out, because Buffalo, from this perspective, it does make them better, obviously, adding Amari Cooper. The Jets have a 2-4 record. They add Devontae Adams. Like, yes, you have to say that makes them better, but there's still a lot of question marks. It's not as if Aaron Rodgers, unlike the Bills quarterback with Josh Allen, it's not like Aaron Rodgers didn't have weapons. Josh Allen does not have weapons. Now you go get him a weapon. I think that's key. Aaron Rodgers and that Jets offense was already struggling with all the weapons that they had. They have a good running back. They have a good receiving room to begin with, and then you go add Devontae Adams, that elevates it. But I don't know if it was the lack of pass catchers that was the problem with the Jets offense. Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it the continuity issues and with that in that coaching room? I don't know, but I do think that the Buffalo Bills, from this perspective, maybe won't be as big impactful on the Bengals, because I think that team's going to win that division. I think Adams to the Jets gives the Jets an opportunity to pull away from some of these other wildcard teams if it works. I think from a Bengals fan perspective, you're battling the Jets more than the Bills at this point. That's how I look at it from a Bengals perspective. But yeah, as far as both receivers that were added to those offenses, who got better? Who got better, significantly better yesterday? Did the Jets surpass the Bills, or did the Bills keep the Jets at an arm's length away, do you think?
I think the Bills locked up the division with that trade for Amari Cooper. I would like to see the defense get a little bit better, but I don't know how much you can ask for a trade on that side. They already had to release Marquez Valdez-Scantling to make enough room to take on Amari Cooper's contract, cap space-wise. And it's not even that big of a contract after Cleveland ate what they had to eat in order to move him off the books. So, I think the Bills are probably done making moves, but I still think Amari Cooper's going to elevate that offense to a level we haven't seen yet this year, and they're going to really take off and win that division with relative ease. I have seen a lot of people in our chat and on Twitter alike saying that Devontae Adams to the Jets doesn't fix anything, and that the passing game wasn't the Jets' problem, and that they have other holes on this team that need to be fixed. I guess I agree to an extent, but when you add Devontae Adams to your team gets better. I don't care what else you have going on. And when you add Devontae Adams to a team with Aaron Rodgers, and they have the best chemistry maybe of any duo ever, or at least in the top 5, I think that absolutely makes the team a lot better. The Jets lost to the Bills on primetime football because they were unable to capitalize in the red zone. They had to settle for 2 field goals that were missed, and other times in the red zone they were unable to capitalize at all. And that is certainly going to be fixed with Devontae Adams. He's going to be a great red zone threat for Aaron Rodgers. And I think Garrett Wilson, a lot of people are worried about his statistical drop-off. I don't know that he's going to drop off that far. I think we see a lot of teams in the NFL sustain two wide receivers and an elite running back. And I think that the Jets are just going to be another team to do that. I think the Jets are going to be really, really good offensively, and I think the defense is going to show some promise. They looked much, much better than they did with Nathaniel Hackett calling plays now that they switched to Todd Downing. So hopefully more of the same for them.
Yeah, if anything, it opens up Garrett Wilson. If
right.
anything, it gives him that chance to be more open than he has. Because with respect to the Lizard, Anthony Lazard is not scaring any defense in the league. So I think now that you have 2 top 20 wide receivers, top 15 wide receivers in the NFL, I think that offense will be certainly better. I'll also say this, though. If they're not good with Devontae Adams, they're out of excuses. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah.
They can't fix the offense if that's not going to work. Clearly, there's an issue at the quarterback position, because if Aaron Rodgers can't figure it out with those 2 running backs and these 3 wide receivers, then there's clearly an Aaron Rodgers problem, and that time's going to come up real soon here.
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. We'll step away for a few moments. I know that this will be touched on later in Buy or Sell, but I am curious your guys' thoughts. When you see the value that the Raiders got for Devontae Adams, when you see the value that the Browns got for Amari Cooper, does it make anyone from a Bengals fan perspective sit back and say, Should the Bengals entertain moving T if things don't go well this Sunday against the Browns? So we'll discuss that when we come back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Carry on, as you guys were.
Well, I've never heard a computer try so hard.
Oh,
I mean that
honestly, round of applause to Kinner's laptop because it's taken everything it's got to do this right now.
We have
So
four more.
your laptops are making absolutely zero sound right now. There's no,
Zero.
I think so.
0.0% sound is coming from this
think
ThinkPad.
so.
Zero. Everybody makes fun of my computer. Everybody. Trace makes fun of everybody. But when you need a computer that works, this is the one you go to. Not whatever dinosaur you're running out there in Dayton. I mean, how is it making that loud? Is it loud in your ears? It has to sound.
I don't hear anything.
That's outrageous then, because it's coming through so loud that my ears are bleeding right now. That's what's happening.
Well, T's and P's during this hard time for you. I'll switch to my phone coming up if that helps.
I don't know.
Unlike the Browns, I'm not going to continue to just say, "Hey, deal with it." I'll switch to my phone and see if we get rid of this. But earlier you guys were mad about the echo. I got Devo wide receivers over here.
Well, yeah,
neither's great.
Neither is great. We were just trying to run a show here, and we got a air.
We had no issue last week.
Well, I don't know what's going on. Well, clearly you've done something.
What's changed?
What have you done?
What's changed?
What have you done?
Let's ask the questions.
What have you done with that computer?
I'm like Aaron Rodgers. I'm throwing Casey under the bus right now. I'm like, hey, I threw it to the spot. It's up to Casey to go catch it.
I don't know.
Unless he's quitting
Casey
on me.
hates his quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, Casey hates his
I'm
quarterback.
going to drop that one.
Oh boy.
Well, we'll try to address it. What about now? No,
We're good.
No, it goes away.
We're good.
It just works really hard for about 45 seconds.
We
and then
just got to
goes back
power
down.
through.
That's okay.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, it's back. It's back.
Thanks, Case. Yeah.
Is it plugged in? Is it plugged into something?
No. It's just sitting. It has my headphones plugged in. I'm sitting here looking at you beautiful people.
So it's not
trying to enjoy my Wednesday.
It's not on a charger?
No. I don't even have my charger. It's in your studio.
Yeah, I just unplugged it to plug my computer in during the break.
Well, that might be the key.
What might be the key?
You should probably.
You want me to plug it in? I can go.
Yeah,
What?
if you plug it in, it won't have to work so hard.
Well, I don't know how he's going to
There's
do
his
that
plugged
because
in.
I'm looking at the charger.
Got the charger here.
Solutions.
Oh, what a
not
segment
problems.
this is.
Yeah, welcome in,
Oh, this
radio
is great.
listeners. ESPN 1410 Wing
Wing
AM.
AM.
Coming at you.
Justin Kinner, Jacob
There you
Tissett,
go.
Elliot Rearing, and Casey McAllister here.
And Kinner's loud computer. It's louder than all of us.
If you're hearing that and you're listening to us in your car on your radio, do not worry. Your car's not about to explode. It's just Kinner's laptop.
That's correct.
So don't be afraid. You're okay. It's just a Wednesday. It's just Kinner's laptop. I feel like that's important to say because if I was driving down the street in the afternoon and I heard...
Well, you know what it is? He's at the racetrack.
What is
He's
it?
got,
Right.
He's got the racing stripe, and now his computer is making the sound of a NASCAR vehicle.
We cashed the over.
So there you go.
Kinner's taking the rest of the show off.
I thought we were gonna bury my team today, but I'm so glad for my laptop, to be honest.
I know. I
And
feel
it's-
bad. I feel bad for the Browns. I do. I feel bad for the Browns. Those poor fans don't deserve this, and they're getting bullied right now into watching the worst product imaginable. The best thing that could happen, truly, and I won't credit another podcast. I won't do it. But in that other podcast, and I think they're right, they said, honestly, this almost acts as public humiliation with as bad as he's been, and you just continue to have him be the worst quarterback in the NFL, and I think it might play out. I think maybe he might retire. He just can't be this bad for so long.
Well, I've thought about that. Like, how tough is that for him to go to work every day being so hated? Like, it's tough for me. I show up to this show every day just getting absolutely verbally destroyed by guys like Mouse Cop and these other guys. And, like,
Yeah.
And I'm a good person. I tip my
That's right.
waitresses, all right? When
You
I
pay
go
your
to the
taxes.
drive-thru, I pay my taxes. I'm a little late, but I pay them. I round up at McDonald's and the others when they say, "Hey, do you want to save the kids with cancer?" Sure, give my 17 cents. Round it up. Save the kids, dude. Like, I'm a good person. And I'm still hated, and it's still tough to come to work every day, but I'm not as bad of a person as old Deshaun Watson, who's disliked by everybody. And he shows up for work every day. He shows up. I mean, when people say money can't buy happiness, I totally disagree. Because that guy, because of that money, he seems to have no problem showing up to work every single day. I just don't get it. To show up to work and be that disliked every single day, I mean, I can relate to a certain extent. But my goodness, that has to be brutal. That has to be brutal.
What do you think he thinks right now when they start shipping all of his wide receivers away? Just so, because I think this is a message, right? When you trade away Amari Cooper, I think it's a message to Deshaun Watson saying, we know the situation that you were putting us in, and now we're going to take away all your weapons, and we're going to make this just as miserable for you as it is for us. I think that goes into play for this. No?
The problem is you're not punishing him. He's getting all his money. You're punishing Myles Garrett. You're punishing Nick Chubb.
Yeah. I think you are.
Amari Cooper. What?
I think you are punishing them as well. But I do think this is
collateral damage.
That's I think the after effect. That's the aftermath of all this. But I think this is looking at Deshaun Watson and saying, we don't believe in you. We just have to deal with you. So you're going to keep playing, and you're going to continue to be bad, and everybody knows it. The league knows it. Your teammates know it. The coaching staff knows it. And we have to keep throwing Stefanski to the wolves. We give him a cue card, and we tell him to read it word for word. And we'll continue to play you, Deshaun, but we're going to make this as miserable for you as it is for the rest of us. And I think that's what happens. I don't think you say it won't be a fire sale. I think it will be. I don't know if they're going to trade everybody. Like you said, I don't know if they can trade that defense, because once you do that, then it's a real problem in Cleveland. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Jeudy gets traded away. I wouldn't be surprised if they start offering David Njoku. Trade everybody. Trade every offensive player they have. See what you can get for Nick Chubb. Hell.
What would a fire sale entail in Cleveland? Like, what players are there?
Yeah, because
So it's what? Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, and Njoku, maybe Jeudy, JOK. And then I guess you could go with the injured O-lineman. But I don't think the list is very long for a fire sale. But I guess that's also the case with most of the teams we talk about with a fire sale when it comes to the Raiders or the Jags or any of those teams. There's only one or two players that they would reasonably get a big return for. So I could definitely see it, but I feel like the Browns are just going to sit on it. The roster's too good outside of Watson to really tear it down, and I think they are just going to sit on it and hope and pray that sometime he gets better. And I just at some point they're going to have to realize that it's not going to happen, but I really think they're going to wait as long as humanly possible.
The other thing too, if they did, so Elliot, when you said you think you think for sure it's going to be a fire sale, but they won't touch the defense. Well, the offense is so bad. There's no value on the offensive side of the ball, so there's not a lot of pieces they can move for it to be considered a fire sale. A fire sale to me is when Newsome and Delpit, and you start moving on from, obviously you talked about those keeping Myles Garrett and others. The thing is for the Browns, the draft capital that they can get in return, if they did blow this up, it would put them in a very good position to fail at a lot of draft picks, or it would put them in a position to turn this around fairly quickly. We know how quickly teams can turn things around in the NFL if you go have a successful draft. We've seen it with the Houston Texans. Yeah. We're watching it with the Commanders. I don't trust Cleveland. This kind of goes back to, the Ryan Day thing from yesterday. Hey, just because you have all the pieces in place, I still haven't seen the results for me to buy all the way in. Just because you have all the draft picks doesn't mean I'm going to trust that Cleveland can get back to where they need to be. Bottom line is you move on from Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, especially with the value of cornerbacks in this league. Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward would get you a haul. You would get some serious draft picks in return for those guys. You got a third already back for Amari Cooper. I just think the Browns got to test the waters. I think this upcoming offseason, they really need to consider just blowing this all up. It's unfortunate, but they really got to test those waters. I really do.
We'll see. I'm not laughing at anything. Casey gave me a smile, so I'm giving him a smile right back.
Got to reciprocate in studio.
Yeah, I think that ownership group's not willing to completely quit. I think they're willing to do the Deshaun thing, pay him because they have to, and then I also think they're trying to go half in, half out, which is the wrong decision. I think you have to make one coming up real soon. And if it were up to me, I'd say sell the defense as well. Sell the defense, sell the offense, sell everybody. and we'll move on and try to rebuild in the next couple of years. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to try to see value because they just made the playoffs. It was a good roster. And outside of one position player, arguably the most important position player on the field, it's still a competent team. It's just right now that it doesn't work, and everybody knows it's not working. So we'll see what goes on. I bet if the Bengals win this week, when's the deadline, by the way?
Election day.
Is it really?
Yeah.
If the Bengals win this week, you'll see more pieces moved.
Man, that November 5th is a big day.
Big day.
It's a big day.
Big day.
I mean, hold up.
Maction?
For one, yes. There's Maction.
That's right.
As you talked about. We find out who's going to lead this amazing country of ours.
That's right.
We also, it's the first college football playoff rankings release
Ooh.
and the NFL trade deadline. Is it really? Is it November 5th?
I think so.
Holy, fill in the blank. That's a great day. That's a big day.
It's a massive day.
4 p.m. on November 5th. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What a day.
Nonetheless, That's pretty
incredible.
Wild. That's a loaded November 5th. I have a dentist appointment that day. I think I'm going to cancel that.
There's too much going on.
That day. I'm not going to be off that day.
Maybe we just go a 24-hour show that day.
We should.
Cover everything live.
Yeah.
A lot of action.
Think your computer can make it 24 hours, Ken?
Shut the hell up. What's wrong with you? You're just... I've defended your laptop for months.
You should give him your backup laptop.
I should give him my backup laptop.
You should give him your backup laptop.
I have a backup laptop.
How that battery...
It's a
with
massive.
That big ass battery.
It weighs about 50 pounds. But
do you have it?
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, it's a wonderful piece.
It does turn off It just turns off, and you have to. It takes about 5 minutes for it to reboot. But you can have it if you want.
No, I appreciate your generosity, dude. I really do. But I'm good. I'm good. We'll
continue with your aircraft.
We'll get it figured out. Shut up. All right, so we'll step away. I teased something earlier. We didn't get into it, so I'm curious your guys' thoughts. T. Higgins, if something happens this Sunday with the Cincinnati Bengals, if the Cincinnati Bengals lose this upcoming Sunday to the Cleveland Browns, okay, should the Bengals entertain the idea of moving on from T when you see what some of these teams have gotten in return for their wide receivers, Amari Cooper and Davante Adams and others? We'll discuss when we come back. Oh, no, by all means. Keep it going. In fact, if you guys do that noise, it drowns out the actual noise.
I know. That's why we do it during the break. When we're not talking, it's insane.
The good news is I can't hear it. So
that is good news. That is good.
That is good news for you. But the rest of us have to suffer.
Hopefully the listeners are all right.
So bad.
But, so question, you guys see what the Browns get for Amari Cooper. You see what the Raiders get for Davante Adams. The one thing about the Browns, it was an easy decision to move on from Amari Cooper. Being 1-5 makes it easy to move on from some guys if you're willing to go that route.
Absolutely.
I do think the bad spot that the Bengals are in, 2-4, and by the way, not a bad spot. You're still in a playoff push, right? You're still in a position to make the playoffs, to get to the wild card, no doubt. But the Bengals are still in that in-between mode where it's like a week ago you guys thought, oh no, the season's over. Then you get a win over the Giants. You see the landscape of the AFC. The wild card's still very realistic. The deficiencies, you're still worried about that defense, even though that defense did technically show up against the Giants. But the thing is, I don't think you guys know what the hell is going on in Cincinnati.
No.
One week you think it's all offense, no defense, and then you beat the Giants with barely any offense, and your defense holds them to 7 points. It just didn't make sense, but a win's a win. But the Bengals at 2-4, it's like, if let's say they did lose to the Giants, I think it's an easy decision. I think you move on from T. Higgins. I think you try to get something in return, especially when you look at what the Browns got for Cooper and what the Raiders got for Davante Adams. But that 2-4 range, you're still not really sure who you are yet. You get a win against Cleveland. I think you feel pretty good about that. You're a game within 500. Now you can take off. But if something goes wrong this Sunday against the Browns, and you drop to 2-5 on the season, what's your guys' perception and takeaway of how the Bengals should handle the T. Higgins situation? When you see what the Raiders got for Adams, when you see what the Browns got for Cooper, if something goes wrong this weekend where the Bengals do not overcome the Cleveland Browns, and as wild as it sounds, every year we think the Bengals are going to beat the Browns, and the Browns just seem to have their number, even on worse occasions in years past at times. I am curious if that does happen, 2-5, are you guys going to start pushing we need to get some draft capital back from T. Higgins?
So third-round picks for both Cooper and Adams. Since 2000, there's only been 34 in-season wide receiver trades. 17 of those 34 have included at least a fourth-round pick. Obviously, when you're talking in-season trades, it's very rare you're talking about a player the caliber of T. Higgins. Obviously, Davante Adams and Amari Cooper would fall close to that range, but I still think age puts T. Higgins well above them in terms of the value that you would want back in order to move him. Since 2018, which is as far back as you have to go to see the last in-season trade involving a wide receiver and a first-round pick, it's when Amari Cooper was sent from the Raiders to the Cowboys. I don't think that that's feasible for T. Higgins, who's not signed long-term. He's on the franchise tag this year. You're going to have to give him a long-term extension. And if the Bengals are selling T. Higgins actively during the season, then they're waving the white flag and saying, hey, we're out of it. So you're going to have to take a little bit of your expectation on what the return is going to be off because of that, and teams aren't going to give up the same amount if you're desperately trying to get rid of players. There's only been 2 trades since 2018 with wide receivers in season that have had second-round picks. Obviously, Davante Adams and Amari Cooper doesn't change that. That's Chase Claypool going to the Bears and Mohamed Sanu going to the Patriots in 2022 and 2019, respectively. I think that is probably the ceiling you could expect from a T. Higgins trade during the season, and that's why I don't really want to trade him. I think if you're just getting a second-round pick, that's not exactly what I want unless you're going to trade him to a Panthers or a Jaguars, and I don't know why they would make that move in the middle of the season. In order for me to trade T. Higgins for a second-round pick, it would have to be for a top 40 pick or so, top 45 maybe at worst, and I don't think that that's something that you're going to get in season. I still think, and I've been saying it all year, I think the Bengals' best course of action for T. Higgins is to double tag him again next offseason for 120% of what he makes this year, and then move him at that point if you can't reach a long-term extension. I'm still holding out hope that maybe there's a long-term extension in the future. That hope dwindles every single day, but we're here, and I don't think an in-season trade is the best course of action for T. Higgins. I think you get more value if you wait till the offseason. I think him playing for the Bengals gives a chance for more value. If he continues to put up numbers, proves he can stay healthy down the stretch, I think trading T. Higgins right now would be some of the lowest value you could ever get out of him.
Yeah, if this season has shown me anything, it's that I want to extend T. Higgins. I want to keep T. Higgins on my roster. The offense is what keeps this machine going, and the defense is the failed project. I don't know who we can get on defense that can save them at this point. I think they're so far gone that even if let's say you don't pay T. Higgins and you use that money to get one player on defense, maybe two players, I don't think fixes our defense. I think there's some serious issues going on back there, and I don't know if we're going to be able to solve them by getting rid of T. Higgins. Now, if we can get a second rounder for T. Higgins, then maybe we can start talking about it. But based on what you just said there, trading wide receivers for third rounders, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in the third rounder for T. Higgins. I'm not. T. Higgins is better than the third round pick, and I trust the Bengals. Let me rephrase. I trust T. Higgins to be good more than I trust the Bengals to draft well with an additional third round pick. It's probably the right move, but at the end of the day, if the offense ain't broke, I'm not going to try to fix it. And right now, it works with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. The chemistry with Joe Burrow, I'd argue, is the best in the NFL. And the offense works. So I'm not interested in moving on from T. Higgins. If it goes terribly wrong, maybe, I guess, if you're throwing in a second rounder. But like Jacob just said, I don't see it happening. I really don't. I don't see a second rounder being offered for T. Higgins. And I think if the option's a fourth round pick, I'm out. I'm completely out. 2 fourth rounders, out. A third and a fourth, out.
I think the ceiling's probably a third and a fifth.
Yeah.
No interest.
It's just like, I'm good. So we'll move on with T. Higgins next year, and hopefully the defense can just be better. Next year's draft is going to be massive because you have to draft defensive players rounds 1 through 4. Unless, of course, T. Higgins isn't there. Then it changes a little bit. But at the end of the day, right now, the Cincinnati Bengals have a defensive problem, and I don't think it gets solved with a fourth-round draft pick. I don't. And I don't trust the Bengals to draft well with that fourth-round pick.
So the reason, and I brought up the third-round return for Amari Cooper and Davante Adams because they're 2 receivers that are 31 years old. They have a lot of mileage on them. T. Higgins does not. And that's why I thought that return for Cooper and Adams, I thought Adams wasn't surprising to get the third round. I was surprised for Cleveland to get the third for Cooper. But if that's the market for a 31-year-old wide receiver, T. Higgins, to me, is not a third-rounder in return. I think you would at least maybe, depending on the desperation of a team, I think the Bills are desperate. I don't think that the Browns are going to get a third-rounder for Cooper by many, if not any other team out there. I think the only other team that desperately needed a wide receiver at this point was the Buffalo Bills, and I think that the Browns played on that desperation and were able to pull that off. I don't know if there's a team that's desperate enough to go all in to give up a lot of prospects to go get T. Higgins. That's the other question. Is there any teams out there, Jacob or anyone, is there any team out there that's a T. Higgins away from being a Super Bowl favorite at this point? I mean, the Commanders. I mean, is there a team out there that's like, you had T. Higgins?
There's one.
There's one,
and the Bengals wouldn't pick up the phone. If the Kansas City Chiefs got T. Higgins, that offense would take a massive step. He'd fill in for Rashee Rice perfectly, and it would change everything there, and the Bengals would not even pick up the phone. I firmly believe that.
No matter what they would offer in return.
I really don't think so. I don't think so. Not at this point, not in this run. You don't give the Chiefs T. Higgins. You just don't do it. And I think that's the only team after the Bills made that move that is truly a T. Higgins away from competing for a Super Bowl, or at least, not that the Chiefs can't compete for a Super Bowl without him, but at least jack that window all the way open. If the Chiefs got T. Higgins, they would maybe move to minus money to win the Super Bowl right after that move. So, yeah, I think they're really the last team left that's a wide receiver away. The only other thing I could think of is maybe a team trying to bolster their rookie quarterback. New England.
Yep.
Washington. Washington, obviously, at this point, we might just talk about them as a contender. But when you have a rookie quarterback, I always put you on the list of trading for a top-tier wide receiver just because that can always open up their play in their young career. We saw what happened to Josh Allen when he was able to get Stephon Diggs early in his career. He took a massive step and has never looked back. So I could see T. Higgins moving to places like that. And that, again, is part of why I think waiting toward draft season or towards the offseason makes even more sense, because that means there's a whole nother group of teams that has young rookie quarterbacks that they want to try to build around. So along with New England and Washington, who doesn't have elite wide receivers right now and could look to add to that position to help Drake May and Jaden Daniels, you'll have new teams like maybe the Raiders and Carolina who want to add a wide receiver to help their young quarterback in his first season. So I think there's going to be a big market for a player like T. Higgins in the offseason, hopefully not as a straight-up free agent. I'm talking about trade.
Yeah. I think T. Higgins probably would garner more than a third, maybe. I know what the offense looks like with him, and I'm not willing to lose that. We haven't seen Jermaine Burton, one of our wide receiving draft picks this year. We haven't seen him. He's a healthy scratch. He's a healthy scratch last week. So I don't know, man. I'm a little. I'm not going to say I'm scared, because if you have Jamar and Joe, I'm still very, very confident in the offense. But I am a little bit worried that we don't have that good wide receiver too if we move on from him, and I'm not willing to move on from him. Not right now. Not at this moment.
And keep in mind, all of this was based on if things don't go well Sunday against the Browns and you find yourself at 2-5. It's based on that, Elliot. If they beat Cleveland, by the way, I'm here to say if they beat Cleveland and most likely beat Cleveland on Sunday, they're not entertaining any move for T. Higgins at this point, because the season's still very much alive. It was just based on that scenario, if that's the case as far as that goes. But yeah, Jacob, you're right. There's only one team. And by the way, you bring up the Patriots and others. I think, and the Panthers, I think those are teams that in the offseason value T. Higgins a lot more than they do at the deadline. At the deadline,
100%.
I think the Bills were desperate. And the Bills were desperate. Let me ask you, if the Bills had approached the Bengals about T. Higgins, if the Bengals were in a similar situation at 1-5, would you have been fine with the Bills? Because I know that the Chiefs are that team that everyone, like the Bengals especially, looks at like we're not helping them. But would you have been fine if they would have helped Josh Allen? Keep in mind the confidence of an organization. Like, hey, we don't want to send you help, but we really need that return if you're willing to give it to us. The Chiefs had the guts to send Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. They had the guts to send him to the Miami Dolphins, all right? It's not as if it's unheard of to send elite talent within a conference. Would you have been fine if the Bills would have got T. Higgins if that was the case?
The Bills send Xavier Worthy to Kansas City.
Yep.
So it happens a lot. But, I mean, I wouldn't have loved it, but it always comes down to what the return is. And if the return's great for T. Higgins, then send him wherever the return's the best. But I'm certainly not happy about trading him to a top-level AFC contender, no matter how you spin it. I mean, that's just – you have to think about then playing him some point down the line and him having a big game and how much that would hurt and how much that would add to the loss in the moment, and that would just kill. So that would always just be in the front of my mind if we moved a player that I love as much as I love T. Higgins to a team like the Bills or the Chiefs. But it all comes down to the return, and if one of those teams is going to give you, say, a first-round pick for a guy on an expiring contract or something like that, I certainly think you make the move. But I do think the price is higher for one of those teams.
100%.
I think the price is higher for one of those teams than, say, the Broncos or a team in the NFC that you don't necessarily plan on seeing in the near future, at least in games that matter. I know the regular season schedule rotates all the time, but we're talking about Super Bowl and playoff here, and that's what I mean with Kansas City and Buffalo. If you're seeing them in the AFC Championship or divisional round and T. Higgins is going 8 for 145 and 2 touchdowns, that's going to twist the knife in your back a little bit more than if you go somewhere else and flourishes. And I certainly want to root for T. Higgins his entire career, Cincinnati or not. So I would greatly appreciate Mike Brown if he sends him elsewhere, not sending him in the AFC North or the Bills or Kansas City or anyone else like that.
Yeah, the Chiefs are the first team. If you have to talk about Bengals rivals, the Chiefs are the first team removed from the division. It's the AFC North, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, and then there's a large gap. I think you could trade T. Higgins to the Buffalo Bills. I don't think you play the Buffalo Bills a ton. We've played the Chiefs every year for 4 years now.
Feels like it.
4 years, 5 years, however many years it's been. We've played the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills we've played a decent amount as well. But at the end of the day, I'm not too concerned about trading T. Higgins to the Bills if the return is as good as it would have to be to any team, let alone just the Buffalo Bills.
Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench. On Twitter, or X, whatever we call it nowadays, but the 33rd team, I don't know if you follow them on Twitter, but the 33rd team, with, of course, the needs that Detroit now has after losing one of their premier pass rushers, they're in the market for an elite pass rusher. The 33rd team had tweeted out, one target that the Lions could potentially look at is on the Cincinnati Bengals roster on the defensive side of the ball, of course. They say don't be shocked if the Lions try to go after Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, one of the trade scenarios that existed was, of course, obviously, Detroit receives Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals receive a 2025 second-round pick. That seems a little wild to think about right now, but again, let's go to that scenario. Things don't go well in Cleveland on Sunday, and we come in to do the show on Monday at 2-5 for the Bengals. That sounds crazy now, is this as crazy of a scenario come Monday if things don't go well in Cleveland?
Yes. I think that's a crazy scenario for Trey Hendrickson. Just a second-round pick. I think at least you're getting at least another mid-round pick in there, second and a fifth or something like that. The Lions are desperate. They're going to do a trade for someone with relative prominence. They're in a Super Bowl window right now. They can win this year even without Aiden Hutchinson, but I think they are going to make a change on that defense and go get someone to help that pass rush, but I don't think a second-round pick for Trey Hendrickson is feasible even at 2-5.
I also don't think the Bengals are going to be willing to trade their only good defensive player. It doesn't make sense at all. If you trade Trey Hendrickson,
2-5. At 2-5, your season's done.
It doesn't even matter though. I
agree.
Trey Hendrickson, who's going to play defense next year? And by the way, and I know eventually you have to say the Bengals have to draft well and we have to trust that they will. I still don't trust that they will draft well. And I don't trust that they can draft a solid defensive player. And if we're trading our one good player away for a draft pick, I don't know if I trust the Bengals to capitalize on that draft pick. Same way with T. Higgins. You cannot trade Trey Hendrickson. Can't do it.
Keep in mind, though, Trey Hendrickson wasn't happy with his money situation last year and was able to bottle that up and put it to the side because he felt they were playing for a Super Bowl this year. Things are really bad in Cincinnati, and if he doesn't feel that, he felt, okay, put that off to the side like T did. I'm going to put this off to the side because, hey, we're in a window to win a Super Bowl. I don't want to be a distraction. Who's to say that he's not willing to be a distraction if he doesn't feel like they're competing for a Super Bowl next year? That's something to consider as well, because are the Bengals willing to pay him and give him another extension? That's the other question mark.
Oh, I absolutely would be open to trading Trey Hendrickson. I just think straight up for a second-round pick for a team that's more desperate than anyone in the league for an edge rusher is a little crazy. I think if
and the compensation, I agree. I'm not for that compensation. They should get more. I just meant moving.
I thought that trade is what you were asking about. Yeah,
my bad.
I think trading Trey Hendrickson's more likely than trading T. Higgins at 2-5. I think I think that's probably the most likely move at 2-5 because you're going to use that extra tag on T to ease that offseason struggle of the trade or extension. So Hendrickson, you're going to have a tough time if you don't plan on extending him for big-time money because all your focus is going to be on these 2 wide receivers in the offseason. So if you don't plan on getting a Hendrickson extension done or figuring out some kind of money plan, I would certainly prefer to get some kind of value for him than letting him walk for free. But again, with every trade, it's a boring way to analyze it. I'd rather just be, oh yeah, trade him or don't trade him. It all comes down to the compensation. You have to get something that makes sense to move Trey Hendrickson off your roster. And Trey Hendrickson is a top 5 to 7 on a bad day edge rusher in football, maybe even higher than that on a good day. I mean, he's a really, really special player who puts up consistent production year after year. I think he warrants a pretty healthy trade package.
Yeah,
I think he's more than special. I think, unfortunately for him, he has been overshadowed, like with how bad the defense has been. The defense has been the storyline the last 2 years, and it's been about how bad it is. If that defense is just average, he is shining like a diamond around the NFL circles right now. And I think there's in NFL circles, there's a lot of teams that will value him. He just doesn't get propped up or talked about enough because he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL on a really bad defense, and I think that has overshadowed his production in Cincinnati, no doubt. So, all right, that wraps it up on this part. We're going to send it back to Casey, who's going to pay some bills and take care of some housekeeping items, and then we'll get to a little buy or sell coming up around the corner as well. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
All right. You guys know what time it is. It's the ad time. And I only got one ad read for you today. The Bengals Report is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore, they deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world. From mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions, they help businesses enhance efficiency. And what is it, fellas? That's right, Jimbos. Visit encore.tech where your path to innovation begins. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button. Share the show with a friend. It helps us grow, helps us bring in more viewers like you. Thank you. And Jacob had the Bengals show yesterday.
That's right. Chatterbox Bengals last night. It's available on YouTube and podcast. So anywhere you are, go check it out. Craig and I broke down some of the key plays from the game. It was certainly an interesting one. A lot of positives on defense, which is a nice change of pace. Got to pick up on a few negatives on the offense, which was also nice to see some things from a different side for both of those units. So it was a good episode. Make sure you go check it out now, YouTube or podcasts. And you don't have long because we have another Chatterbox Bengals episode coming out soon.
Another Chatterbox Bengals tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Champions Grill on Work Road. Champions Grill with an E, Work Road with an E. We are giving away 2 Bengals tickets to the Eagles game, now 1 o'clock. It has been moved to 1 o'clock. So tomorrow night, we're giving those away thanks to Heidelberg, Cincinnati, and Bud Light. So be at Champions tomorrow at 7 o'clock. You're going to have a chance to win 2 Bengals tickets to that Eagles game in 2 weeks. Be there. Exciting. Be square. It's going to be a fun time. We had a winner last time for the tickets. He had a great time at the game against the Ravens, even though the Bengals lost that. Either way, it's going to be fun. See you guys tomorrow night, Chatterbox Bengals, live at Champions Grill, 7 p.m.
Grill with an E, work with an E.
Both E's.
That's right.
Other little housekeeping items. Box lunch will not be right after this show. We are still kind of determining whether we're going to do it at 1 today or if we want to just wait till Thursday.
Would you guys prefer it at 1 today or right after the show on Thursday?
So let us know.
Ask in the chat. So let us know what you guys would want. We can probably make that happen. We might not listen to you, but we can probably make that happen.
I'll make it a poll.
Yeah, make it a poll.
I'll make it a poll. I don't know if I can make it just a members only poll. No, I can't. Still make it a poll? Is it fine?
Yeah, make it a poll.
Yeah, make it a poll. Poll these suckers.
Poll.
Poll time.
Poll.
How are you, Elliot?
I'm good. I'm all right.
You don't like the headphones?
I had to give myself a break from the noise. I can only take that noise for so
I
long.
really don't hate the headphones.
I like no. I like the headphones. I don't like the noise that's coming through them.
Well, yeah,
because that's
I muted it. I muted my mic. I muted my mic, asshole. It's fine. All right, you can't hear it.
Well, I couldn't honestly. I couldn't risk it. So I had to do this.
That's fair.
But yeah, if we keep Kinner's laptop in a freezer or something where it can stay nice and cool, maybe that'll help it out. But
you remember my old laptop?
Oh yeah,
very similar issue.
Yours didn't make noises though. It just heated up.
It just burnt my leg.
It just caught on fire.
Yeah.
I genuinely can't wait for Kinner to listen back today's show and just hear it just
beautiful.
I mean, it's outrageous.
Beautiful.
It sounds like I'm at an airport, but whatever.
Someone said that I buy cheap vodka and cheap laptops, and that's preposterous. I do not buy cheap vodka. Not even close.
There you go.
That's ridiculous. Would never do such a thing. But
there you go.
There you go. Casey, do we have that Mike Tomlin soundbite?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we'll come back with that whenever we're ready.
All right, let's go back to Radio Land.
Nice. That was... I'm not going to lie.
That rocked.
That was pretty dang good. That was... Well done, guys. Well done.
We're synced up, baby.
Oh, that rocked.
Yeah. Team chemistry right there.
That's
job,
right.
you two. We welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tisset, and the annoying noise brought to you by Kinner's Laptop. We are off and rolling here on a Wednesday. More AFC North news yesterday. Of course, we talked about the Browns moving on from Amari Cooper and the ripple effect that has throughout North and the AFC in general. But it was a big news day yesterday of the NFL. A lot of stuff was happening. Kind of wild. But Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers announced, kind of, in a weird way, that Russell Wilson will take first-team snaps. So I don't know if he's going to be the starter on Sunday, but I don't know. Nothing's making sense in Pittsburgh. But here's Mike Tomlin addressing why Justin Fields may not be the starter this coming up weekend.
Justin has been really good, and we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. Man, this is a competitive league, man. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team. And we got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what Justin has done or has not done. Justin has been an asset to us, man. Last week, for example, man, his ability to utilize his legs by design and by ad-lib was a significant component of that game. He rushed for 50-plus yards and 2 touchdowns in game. And so we're appreciative of that. We're appreciative of how he's taking care of the ball. But we're just looking at all the people at our disposal the same way that we do at any position. We acquired, Terrell Edmonds a number of weeks back, who we have a history with. And as soon as we got him up to speed and got comfortable, we started considering ways to utilize his talents. That's what you do in this thing. You better have your foot on the gas at all times. You better look to divide the labor up in the most appropriate way based on who's available to you and healthy. And that's just simply what we're going to do.
That was Mike Tomlin when asked about his, the decision to kind of start to take a look at Russell Wilson now that he's healthy and back. Never fully, people say, man, Justin Fields, how is he losing his job? He was never fully named the starter. He did what a backup's supposed to do, come in and fill in. My favorite line from Mike Tomlin in that whole situation: Justin has been good, but don't confuse great with good. Like they want great. And to be fair, to laugh at that a little bit, and I know Jacob, I know you'll agree. I mean, is Russell Wilson great? I mean, are we replacing Justin Fields with great? Now, I thought of Jacob right away yesterday because he was asked about, does Russell Wilson, is he going to be able to bail them out of situations when that line collapses? And he straight up said, no, just no. That's going to be the one element right there. Mm-hmm. But I think at a certain point, what you want out of your quarterback is the ability to make plays with your arm. At the end of the day, the one reason that so many people really don't latch onto Lamar Jackson is truly being all in on Lamar Jackson is because, hey, I judge my quarterbacks on how they throw the football. I want to see them throw the football at a high level. And Lamar does that so inconsistently that's what keeps even a guy like him that's won 2 MVPs from people really latching on and saying, man, I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. Justin Fields is kind of going through that same thing. People bring up the total touchdowns. Okay, he doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. He's accounted for a lot of touchdowns. He's made a lot of big plays with his legs, and that's what you like, especially for a team that has deficiencies at the offensive line. But at a certain point, to get to where they want to go, you have to have a quarterback that can make plays with your arm. And I think that's one reason why they're looking at Russell Wilson. I only find irony in that because are we convinced that Russell Wilson, who might be a better throwing quarterback than Justin Fields, is it good enough to still get you to that point? I get why they're still looking at Russell Wilson. You didn't bring him over to be the backup. You initially brought him over before you got Fields. So you would have to think that there was probably some behind closed doors assurances when he came to Pittsburgh that he was the starter and they can't go back on that. Maybe. I'm not really sure. But this is a very weird scenario, and I think we should have seen it coming. They never committed to him being the starter to begin with, talking about Justin Fields. But it is an odd scenario. A team that's 4-2, tied for the top of their division, making a quarterback change at this point of the season when they're coming off of a big win just last weekend. Kind of a weird scenario, no doubt.
Yeah, Justin Fields only turned the ball over 3 times this year, 2 lost fumbles, 1 interception. He's protecting the ball. He's winning them football games. They're sitting at 4-2. He's doing everything they're asking him to do. He's making the plays necessary to end the game with a win. And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know how we can continue to call Mike Tomlin this genius coach when he's pulling out players that are winning games for a guy that is inept, really. I mean, Russell Wilson's a terrible quarterback. And
Come on. A terrible quarterback?
Horrendous. He's one of the worst contracts in NFL
why move
history.
on?
And
Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph won them games. Why'd you move on from them then? Because they didn't win them games. I don't think Fields is winning them games.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have said that either of these two guys are head and shoulders above those guys. But I think when you have these two in your room, I think you go with the one who can do the most with their legs when your offensive line is this bad. We saw Russell Wilson. I mean, if Russell Wilson's not a bad quarterback, then I don't think the Broncos would be paying him $40 million to play for someone else. I think if he was able to win football games, he would be doing it for the team that's paying him a max contract. So, I think Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win in every way, shape, or form, and I think they're going to see it pretty quickly. But I don't know how you can bench Russell Wilson and go back to Fields now. I think this is a very, very interesting spot for the Steelers to be in.
I'm not a Justin Fields guy. I'm not. I think he's a running quarterback. At the end of the day, you're 4-2. He's done everything you've asked of him, as Jacob just said. I don't know how this is even a thought that you can change quarterbacks. This might be just a ploy to maybe throw the scent off of what we're doing, the strategy and all that. But if you think that it's going to get better with Russell Wilson, I don't think you've watched the games, Mike. I think Justin Fields' ability to move with his legs because of a bad offensive line being forced to – I think Jacob showed me some clip yesterday where that offensive line crumbled in 0.02 seconds, and Fields has to be able to run away to get a first down. I mean, that's the only way to do this. Russell Wilson has been able to run in the past. He's an aging quarterback. He's not as fast as Justin Fields. If they were 2-4, if they were 2-5, 2-6, then I understand it. Then I get it because you're not getting what you need out of Justin Fields.
For sure.
But you're getting what you need out of Justin Fields. Justin Fields is playing elite football right now. He hasn't turned the ball over, as Jacob said, passing-wise.
Elite?
He has been. He's been pretty damn good.
He's not. Justin Fields is not elite.
I think who said it in our group chat yesterday? The stat comparison with C.J. Stroud this year.
Yeah, it was the Bear.
It was the Bear. The Sean the Bear Spurlock sent it in our chat, and he's had a good year. I can't say anything about it. I'm not a Justin Fields believer, but he's had a great year with the Steelers, and he's been a large part of the reason why they are 4-2. If you take that away, I don't understand what the point is. Because I do agree with Kinner at what you started the segment with. Eventually, you have to have a true passing quarterback. You have to have that true passer. And I don't believe Justin Fields is that. But until it hurts them, you can't move on from it. It doesn't make any sense.
I think the thing is, too, when you look at the history of the Steelers, we can always say how annoying that the Pittsburgh Steelers are, right? Because they just keep finding ways to win. You had geriatric Big Ben, who was not playing at a high level. They still won football games. You move on from him. You get a rookie in Kenny Pickett. You put him in. He's not good. They still win football games. You got Mason Rudolph. You put him in. They still win football games. He wasn't good either. The bottom line is I think we can all agree, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Justin Fields may not have been losing him games, but I think you could drop any bad quarterback, as we've seen in that behind center, and they keep winning. They won with geriatric Big Ben. They won with Kenny Pickett. They won with Mason Rudolph, and they're winning with Justin Fields. So to me, this idea that they can't move on from Justin Fields because they're 4-2, that's all this team. They win with average to little quarterback production to begin with. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is head and shoulders better than Justin Fields at this point. They want to roll the dice and see what he brings to the table from that perspective. But this idea that Justin Fields has them at 4-2 when they won games with Kenny Pickett, they won games with Mason Rudolph, geriatric Big Ben, this just seems like a scenario where most teams' quarterback doesn't matter, or for most teams, quarterback always matters. It seems like in Pittsburgh, sometimes that's not the case. This team's winning because of that defense, and they got production from their run game this past weekend, which was something that was refreshing for Steelers fans, of course. The other thing to consider, too, they're not getting a lot of production from their wide receiver in Pickens, who seems to be very disgruntled. That plays a huge role in this, too. I don't think the Steelers want to lose Pickens. You lose Deontay Johnson, you keep losing all these pass catchers, you keep losing all your playmakers, and I think a lot of it is because they're frustrated with the lack of production from the quarterback position over the years. And if Russell Wilson can come in, keep winning football games, and he's appeasing Pickens, now that's the best of both worlds. You're not going to know until you see it. It is a weird move at 4-2, no doubt. Like I said, with the Steelers, it's not like they were losing, and all of a sudden with Fields they're winning. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they always win. No matter who's at quarterback, that's the weird counter-argument. That's why we said it. The Steelers are annoying. Nothing makes sense with the Pittsburgh Steelers when it's all said and done.
See, but I think what you just did was make an argument to keep Justin Fields in the game because he's not turning the ball over and everyone else is winning the game for them. He's doing exactly what's asked of them to keep them in a point where that defense can win the game. And I don't know that Russell Wilson can do that. Russell Wilson had 20 turnovers in his last 2 years in Denver. He's going to turn that ball over. Russell Wilson is going to go out there and try to win games as Mr. Unlimited. He's going to try to do things that Justin Fields doesn't try to do. Exactly. To try to win games and bolster himself up. I mean, the dude's wearing eye black and a helmet when he's inactive. You think he's not going to go out there and try to make some hero plays? Justin Fields is not trying to do that, and I think that's why the Steelers are 4-2, because he's only doing what the defense gives him. He's only doing the bare minimum. And is that going to win you a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But if we think the Steelers signed Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in the offseason because they had wanted a quarterback that could win them the Super Bowl, I think we're on different pages here. I think the Steelers are trying to tread water and figure out what might work and maybe attack the quarterback position a different way next season. I would certainly be surprised if after 6 weeks either of these two guys are the Steelers' long-term starter. Maybe Fields. Maybe they see enough out of him that they think he can continue to grow and be enough for them to compete for the AFC North and playoffs and Super Bowls and all that good stuff. But I certainly don't think Russell Wilson's a long-term solution. So what are you making the switch for? You're making the switch to go 10-7 and sneak into the wild card this year? Because the only one out of these two guys that has a small chance of being the long-term solution at quarterback is Justin Fields. Russell Wilson, that's out. So I don't know why you wouldn't at least rock with Fields and see what you have there and maybe strike gold on a guy who was a big promising prospect out of college and just hasn't really worked out in the pros. And here you are, you have him playing some decently high-level football, and you're going to move on from him for a 30-plus-year-old guy that is no chance of being your long-term solution.
They also got Justin Fields for free. I mean, they traded a 6th-round pick. Now, I will say that does become a 4th-round pick based on playing time. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, it definitely could.
So maybe it's we don't want to risk losing a 4th-round draft pick, so we'll roll with the other guy. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know yet. But at the end of the day, you really didn't trade that much for him, so who knows?
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they got this weekend? I know we've talked about this. Right? Who they're preparing
the Jets.
For what? The Jets. They got the Jets. So you got Aaron Rodgers against Russell Wilson. How about that? Now, have they named? Now, that's the thing, though. Did they name Russell Wilson the starter, or did they just backdoor way say he's
Russell Wilson's been
reps?
The starter. Russell Wilson's been named the starter. He's been QB1 on the depth chart all year long. So I guess they don't have to make an announcement.
Yeah, because it sounded weird yesterday that he's getting the first, he's back and he's going to be put back into getting first-team snaps, and that just sounds like, hey, that's where this is rolling, nonetheless. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. We'll do a little buy or sell to close out the radio side of this. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Oh, hey, welcome back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. All right, we're going to jump into a little buy or sell as we close out the things on the radio side here. There you go. We had no sounders for that. No sounders for that.
Bye.
Old school stuff there.
Sell.
Bye.
Maybe Casey just does.
All right.
Love it or list it.
Ad lib.
Yes, because he's not on the he's not on camera. So and that gets
the voice
Casey
of God.
involved. There we go. All right, little buy or sell as we close out the radio side of things here. The Detroit Lions, a big-time win over the Cowboys. Not just beating the Cowboys, but dominating the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, losing Hutchinson is a big deal, and it sounds like they're going to be aggressive at the deadline trying to find a replacement pass rusher when it's all said and done. But Detroit, I think, is just getting overshadowed by a lot of teams in their own division. The NFC has some new blood. You look at the Commanders and others that has a lot of people talking. Baker Mayfield's a good story over with the Bucs. Obviously, Sam Darnold with the Vikings is a good story. There's a lot of good stories in the NFC, but there's one team that has just consistently been good for quite a few years now, and that's the Detroit Lions. Buy or sell, the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC.
If Hayden Hutchinson had a leg, I'd buy it. But until they make a move for a different edge rusher, I just don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I think that defense relies on him too much, both as a leader and as a pass rush presence. I think that they need to make a move to remain atop the NFC. I think they're very, very good. I think they're still one of the best teams in the NFC, and I absolutely think they could make and win a Super Bowl without Hutchinson. But for me to put them locked in as the number one team in the NFC, I think they're going to have to make a move to bolster that position.
I'm going to buy it. I think they are the best team in the NFC. I think is this NFL or NFC, by the way?
I said best team in football, then I said NFC, but let's just, for one, the NFC, and then tell me where you think they stack up in the NFL as a whole.
I think they're the best team in the NFC. I do. I think they score the most points. They can win any shootout that comes their way. They have the one loss, as you mentioned. But again, I think the Vikings are due for a little bit of a collapse at some point. Not collapse like they'll miss the playoffs collapse, but collapse as in they're not going to go undefeated. I do think the Lions are the best team in football. I think they've proven that. They've dominated. No team in the NFC West, no team in the NFC East is good enough, in my opinion, and certainly no team in the NFC South. And that leaves just the NFC North, and there are 4 really good teams right now in the North. So if it's between them and the Packers, Bears, and Vikings, I'm going to take the Lions over all 3 of those teams if they were to play.
Yeah, the Lions, there's just something to be said about continuity as well. Like what we said right now, we're trying to say, there are people that are trying to say, okay, the Vikings are the best team in the NFC. We're basing that off of 6 games. The Buccaneers, great story with Baker Mayfield, as I mentioned. And, the Packers, they're 4-2. How about that division, by the way? It's panning out to be the division that we thought the North was going to be is what's happening over there in the NFC with that side of it. But there has to be something said about, we're trying to figure out about the Vikings. We're trying to figure out the Washington Commanders. We're trying to figure out if the Eagles, who on paper are for real, but are they for real on that football field? We don't know. We're trying to figure a lot of teams out. The Lions, we know who they are. They were good. They got everyone's attention 2 years ago. They burst onto the scene last year, and they pick up right where they left off from a season ago. I'm going to buy that the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC. I'm still not going to put them over, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs. But top 3 in football, as wild and weird as it sounds, yes, I'm going to buy that the Detroit Lions are the best in the NFC. But I can't ignore, like what Jacob said, we can't ignore that injury. We can't ignore that Hutchinson injury. We just assume that they're going to address it. I don't think you fully replace Hutchinson, but I do think they are going to be aggressive in trying to figure out a way to try to fill some of that production and that void. But we'll see what they end up doing. But I really like the Lions. I do too. I love their coach.
Their offense.
Campbell. Yeah.
Their offense is the best offense in the league on paper. I mean, it's playing like it too, but
Yeah.
those wide receivers are incredible what they've been able to do there. Jamison Williams really coming into his own, running more than just straight now, which is a big positive for that Lions offense. And then Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Doesn't get much better than that in the backfield.
They haven't been able to use anybody or everybody either. Sam Laporta had 1 catch last week.
Yeah.
He had 1, and it was a 50.
He's had a slow start to his year.
It was a 50-yard touchdown reception. But at the end of the day, I think you have a team that's so talented offensively that you can't bet against them. And that's where I am. I think they're the best team in the NFC. I'm not going to say they're the best team in the NFL because I think that title does belong, unfortunately, to the back-to-back Super Bowl champs.
Is Jared Goff the most underrated, and this isn't a buy or sell, but is Jared Goff, maybe it can be buy or sell, is Jared Goff the most underrated quarterback in the National Football League?
I don't know if he's the most underrated because I think after last year, I think people started to get back on the Jared Goff train. I think a couple years ago he might have been the most underrated, but now he's not. I'm going to sell the fact that he's the most underrated, but he's certainly towards the bottom. I think when you talk about the upper echelon of quarterbacks, you don't talk about Jared Goff. That's a fact. But I do think people are pretty aware that Jared Goff's a serviceable quarterback in the NFL now. Good to serviceable quarterback.
The fact that we're buying or selling whether the Lions are the best team in the NFC and most of the people just bought it locks in Sam Darnold as the most underrated quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
For sure. No question about it. He's been incredible.
Jared Goff or Brock Purdy, both are available in free agency, and your team needs a quarterback. Who are you prioritizing?
No question. Give me Goff.
I'll take Goff every day and twice on Sunday.
Wow. Okay. Brock Purdy continues just to be Mr. Irrelevant. He continues to get dunked on nonetheless. All right, continuing on with the buy or sell here. Again, a lot of games still happening in London. I mean, but they keep punishing the out-of-the-country, fan bases with these horrible games. But buy or sell. So Roger Goodell was asked about whether a Super Bowl would ever be played outside of the United States. He is asked about this. His response was, well, initially they like to reward cities that have NFL teams with this, but he could see one day that it, of course, is played outside of the United States. Now, he's saying this to media and fans outside of the United States. So buy or sell that a Super Bowl will be played outside of the United States at some point. I'll start this one and say I'm going to sell the hell out of it. Look, he's doing his best politician impersonation when he's out there. He is taking games outside of the States to make money and make money only. You're not losing money by taking the Super Bowl out of the United States, and you're not going to, unless you can make more by doing it, I don't know. But I think it's silly to take the Super Bowl outside of the United States. I'm going to sell it. I think, of course, he has to say that to the foreign media. I think he has to say that to the foreign fan bases out there that, of course, yes, there's one day I see that we could bring the Super Bowl outside of the United States. I just can't envision them doing that. I'm going to sell this. I do not think that the Super Bowl will ever be played outside of the U.S.
What time we have in the Super Bowl? 9 a.m.? I mean, that's outrageous. I'm good. Yeah, this is a hard sell. America's biggest sporting event is not going to take place in London. It's just not going to happen. We can talk about it's not going to take place in Brazil or Mexico. It's going to take place in America, and that's just what it is.
I think this is absolutely silly, and I love that everyone's selling it. I am, without question, 100% buying this, and I'm going to be absolutely pissed when it happens. It's going to be the worst thing to ever happen in NFL football. There will be an international Super Bowl within the next decade. Absolutely. No question about it in my mind, and it will be in London. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen relatively quickly, and it's going to be horrendous.
What time would it play?
Oh, it'll play early. Probably about noon. I absolutely think it will happen. Absolutely.
There's no way. You're going to lose
You'll make
viewership.
So much more money.
Oh, man, if they did that, I don't know.
It would stink. But I absolutely think it's going to happen.
Imagine, that might be, if that's at noon, that would be the most sober I've ever been for a Super Bowl. That would be painful.
Then what do you do at like 5?
Well, okay. So this,
go to bed.
It would only benefit. It legit would only benefit one group of people, and that's the fan base of that team, of the team that wins.
No, it wouldn't.
Oh, I think it would, because then you could just party all day. Then you party all day long.
I think any fan base in the Super Bowl would rather have their Super Bowl here and have a chance to go.
No, you'd rather have that. I'm just saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think anyone benefits except for NFL higher ups.
I think that fan base would have a fun day. If the game ends at 3:30, and then you're out partying all afternoon and all night long.
Like, it's exponentially more fun to win a night game.
It 100%. I'm just saying.
Right. So I'm saying there's no benefit.
Correct. There is no. I'm just saying if there was one positive to take away from it, it would be the team that wins fan base would have all day to celebrate. I'm not advocating for it to happen. I hate it.
I mean, this would stink.
I'm just saying.
I'm absolutely on the same page as the rest of you guys. And if we were buying or selling, if we won an international Super Bowl, I would sell it to high heaven. But I absolutely do think it's going to happen. I don't think there's a more money-hungry owner than Roger Goodell, and I think he's going to grow this game internationally. We already went from 1 to 3 games in the last few years, and I think that number's going to keep going up. And as it does, I think it's gonna be an international Super Bowl for sure.
All right, moving on. Buy or sell? I know we spent a lot of time on this in the first hour, but T. Higgins, if the Cincinnati Bengals lose on Sunday, buy or sell the idea that the Cincinnati Bengals would trade T. Higgins? Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell it, and it's not because I don't think they're going to pick up the phone. I think if calls are coming in at 1-5, you absolutely are picking up the phone and you are answering and you're negotiating and all that stuff. I just don't think a level of trade compensation is going to reach a point where the Bengals want to pull the trigger on that. I don't think anyone's going to be giving up a second-round pick or anything like that. And how we always sit here and talk about the defense, and I say it's stupid to talk about making a big-time trade to save this defense because the Bengals never do it. They also don't make big-time trades of their own talent in season unless it's a guy who's absolutely tanking the locker room like a Carson Palmer or a Carlos Dunlap. So I don't see this happening, both from a Bengals perspective, and I don't think there's a lot of teams out there that are going to give up the compensation necessary to make moving T. Higgins in the middle of the season make sense, even if this season is over at 1-5. I just don't see it happening.
I also think at 2-5, I still think the front office and Mike Brown and the fam.
2-5, sorry.
I still think that the fam still believes that the Bengals would still be able to make the playoffs. They're not trading anybody at 2-5. You have a winnable schedule coming up. Even if you were to lose this, which would be terrible, and by all means might end the season for us and for anybody who rationally looks at what the team is. But saying that, it is a very winnable schedule down the stretch. Very winnable. It all depends on basically what you think of the Steelers and or Browns. But if you're able to beat the Browns, the season's all the way back. If you lose to the Browns, it's over in the sense that I don't know if I believe in this team can win a playoff game. But mathematically speaking, I think the Brown family looks at this and say, we're not giving up yet.
I also think a good point that Game Day 513 puts in the chat is T would probably want a contract if traded. Obviously, I think a lot of the big points this offseason before he signed that franchise tender early was would he hold out. I think if you trade him to a place he doesn't want to go, a holdout's certainly on the table and something that will make teams not very eager to trade for a guy without talking to him beforehand and probably giving him a contract beforehand. I don't think you're going to trade what would be required for the Bengals to let go of T. Higgins for a guy on we're 6 weeks in, so a 12-week rental.
Yeah.
It's just not something that's going to happen, I don't think, league-wide. You would have to get an extension done first, and then you're trading money and high-level picks for him. Don't think it's going to happen.
There's only one team I could see doing it. And again, I know we discussed this already. I'm not gonna go all in and buy. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna put this on a credit card. I'm not gonna buy it with my own money, but I'll at least put it on a credit card. A 2-5 start. Which, by the way, if we're gonna do a buy sell, do I buy the fact that the Bengals will be 2-5? I would have a hard time buying that as well with how bad things are in Cleveland right now. But a 2-5 start for the Bengals would make them put them in a situation where it would kind of be silly not to entertain offers, and who's to say that they wouldn't. But there's one team I think that would do it, and I think it is the Washington Commanders. I mean, when you want to talk about the fact that you look at the teams that have been aggressive when they get rookie quarterbacks on rookie quarterback contracts, give the Houston Texans a lot of credit. They got aggressive and they went after Stephon Diggs, and I know that was in the offseason. But if an opportunity to go get T. Higgins right now for Jaden Daniels, who has already proven himself, and you got to be the Commanders who have to be aggressive because Philly's not going to go anywhere. Dallas is a mess, yes, but to secure that division, and you need another wide receiver for Jaden McDaniels when you head into the offseason anyways, and it's hard for me to doubt that T. Higgins and the Commanders wouldn't be a talking point come the offseason. I think the Commanders have the cap space to give him the extension he would want, and I do think that they could look at that second-round pick and put value there and say, hey, with that second-round pick, we could draft a wide receiver there, but at the same time, we could take a chance and hope that that receiver we draft pans out, or we can go get somebody that we know is exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to buy it. If they're 2-5, I buy that the Bengals could move on from T. Higgins at the deadline because I think that the Washington Commanders make a ton of sense. Rookie quarterback, they have the cash to spend. All right, they have the cash to spend and the draft capital and the desire and need for it. I'd buy it from that perspective with where we're sitting right now. But again, that's up to the Browns. That's up to the Browns on what happens on Sunday. So
Bengals can't lose.
All right,
Bengals can't lose.
Yeah. Last but not least, buy or sell as we close this out. My team, the Guardians. Gotta love the Cleveland Guardians. They're just trying their
America's team.
They're trying their hardest. Oh, they're playing their little cute hearts out. Buy or sell that after the Yankees have a 2-0 series lead already, buy or sell, the Guardians will get swept by the New York Yankees.
I sure hope not, man. But yeah, it probably is going to happen. I don't know. I'm pretty out on the Guardians at this point. Coming back to Cleveland, maybe you can get the juices of a home crowd and steal one early. But the Yankees are a better team in every aspect, and I guess that's what happens when you have $300 more million in your payroll.
I'm going to sell it because I think a sweep's hard to do, but it'll be a gentleman's sweep. It'll be 4-1. 4-1, and it'll be sad for everybody involved. I just think I don't think the Yankees can lose. Not to this team.
We need the black magic of the Mets to save us.
That's it. That's the only way.
What did Vogt do last night that had everyone all fired up? He loaded the bases.
He walked Aaron Judge to get to, or he walked Juan Soto to get to Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
I guess it's kind of a lose-lose situation, but I mean, what are we doing?
It's tough.
I mean,
Terry
Francona would never. Terry Francona would never.
Did you see how that first run was scored last night? On that Aaron Judge pop-up? It was in the first inning, first and third. Nobody out. Aaron Judge pops one up into the infield. Routine play. Missed it. Bobbled it. Run scores on a routine pop-up.
Very nice.
Tough scenes. Yeah, Yankees are better.
Yankees are wagging.
So the reason I'm going to buy that they get swept too is because the Yankees were rolling through the playoffs with Aaron Judge not playing well. And now he's starting to get it going a little bit, and I think that's scary for, By the way, I know we talked yesterday. I want to get back to the same debate as yesterday. But you guys don't want to see Dodgers-Yankees? You don't want to see Shohei Ohtani against Aaron Judge? That's... Like, for me at this point...
It's the last thing
I will not watch a game if that's the case.
Probably.
You would not want to watch Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge and all that. Like that's a baseball's dream.
I'm uninterested in Goliath versus Goliath.
I haven't watched the Yankees game all year. I hate that club.
Those are my two least favorite franchises in professional sports by a wide margin.
The Yankees are my least favorite baseball team for sure. I probably put the Cardinals and Cubs above the Dodgers though.
I try to view, and this is how I view all sports. It's less about the brands that are involved, and it's the players. Like, that's why I love the NBA. I don't tune in. I watch Jokic. I'm not a big Denver fan. I don't know any Denver.
I can do that in other sports. I just can't do that in baseball.
You just can't do it in baseball?
All the big name players just end up at those big brands because of the lack of salary cap. They just go sign them anyway. So the Yankees will always have the Juan Sotos, and the Dodgers will always have the Shohei Ohtanis. So that's why I don't like to see them always on top. It's a little bit different in basketball because, I do like the Nuggets because what were the Nuggets before they got Jokic? And he's dragged that franchise out of the mud. Now they're on the top. And same thing with LeBron in Cleveland. And with the Yankees and Dodgers, it's just like, the Nationals found this generational hitter who's up at 22 and tearing the world apart on a World Series run. We'll just sit here and wait for 3 years and then sign him for $400 million. I'm sure the Dodgers are sitting here watching Ellie De La Cruz licking their lips. I mean, it's the same thing every year, and that's why I hate these teams.
Good professional sports leagues evenly disperse the good players in the league.
All right, well, if you have to pick, which team do you hate more, the Dodgers or Yankees? Which one makes you more sick if they win a World Series?
Yankees by a mile.
For him, it's Yankees. For me, it's Dodgers. I just can't stand a team that just throws money at everybody.
I would usually say Dodgers.
They're paying a guy $1 billion, and his salary this season is less than Nick Senzel. The fact that they're able to do that is so infuriating that it's hard for me to contemplate just how the Dodgers are able to do all this.
If the Yankees win this World Series, they get Juan Soto for 12 years.
Yeah.
They cannot win this World Series.
Yeah.
That's really where I'm at right now. Juan Soto has to go somewhere else because I love Juan Soto and I want to be able to root for him.
I'm cheering for the Mets more than I've cheered for any team ever.
Big time. And they're the highest payroll in the league. Funny enough.
Ironically.
All right, this is that wraps it up for us on the radio side. I know we got a little bit of time remaining. Cincinnati Bearcats coach Wes Miller had some interesting things to say about a call that he recently had with Buckeyes coach Jake Diebler. We could maybe be getting something that we've been wanting here in the state of Ohio when it comes to the college basketball front for quite some time. We'll talk about that more on the YouTube side. But that wraps it up for us on radio until tomorrow, which, by the way, I have a surprise for everybody tomorrow.
Oh!
Our viewers. There's a big surprise, and you're going to have to tune in tomorrow at noon or at 10 a.m. to find out. At 10 a.m., right when the show starts, my surprise for you will be unveiled, and it's going to be a good one. So
a laptop that works? Hey, do you wish Jacob a happy birthday?
I did not know it was Jacob's birthday.
Thank you, Kenner.
It's Jacob's birthday today.
I
appreciate it.
What did you say thank you for? Hold up. All I said was I didn't know it was your birthday. You
that's
said
right. I
you,
appreciate you not lying. I appreciate you not lying. Because most people would just say, oh, no, happy birthday. You didn't know. I appreciate the honesty.
Yep, strippers on her way. Strippers on her way.
There we go.
All right.
Way to ruin
happy
it.
birthday to Jacob. Yeah. Sorry, I'll cancel the stripper then. My bad. But that wraps it up for us. Until tomorrow on the radio side, this has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers.
I mean, it's insane.
You know how I can... You know what? How about you two just close it out?
That's fair. There is something I did want to talk about.
Right?
Sure, I got a new topic. Did you see yesterday Tom Brady was cleared by the owners to be a minority owner of the Raiders?
I did see that.
Tom Brady will now be a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and part of the requirements for being an owner is he can no longer do his job as a broadcaster. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Did you see the list of things he cannot do anymore?
I did, but please read it out for everybody.
For our listeners, I'll go ahead and share this. Tom Brady cleared to be a minority owner of the Raiders, and with being an owner of an NFL team, there's a litany of things that you are no longer allowed to do. Tom Brady, the number one lead broadcaster for CBS?
Isn't he?
Fox.
Is he Fox?
He's
Fox's lead broadcaster, Tom Brady. He can no longer enter another team's facility. He is not permitted to watch practices. He is not permitted to attend broadcast production meetings, either in person or virtually. He is prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials or other clubs. He's subject to the NFL's gambling policy, and he's subject to the NFL's anti-tampering policy. So, the lead broadcaster for Fox is not allowed to do his job as a broadcaster. How can you broadcast games without going to production meetings? How can you call games if you can't be critical of officials and other teams?
How can you talk to the players beforehand and get storylines for games
without tampering?
If you can't enter the facilities.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
his restrictions.
Insane.
His restrictions sound an awful lot like Pete Rose's ban from baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, and I actually think Pete Rose had more access to a sport he was banned. Well, not now, but Pete Rose at the time had more access to a sport he was. Sorry, I pulled a Casey. Pete Rose had more access to a sport he was banned from than Tom Brady does from a sport that he's not banned from. That
he's actively calling.
Yes,
he's trying to call the games, marquee games.
He's the highest paid broadcaster in sports.
He's going to call the Super Bowl, is he not?
I think so. And the fact that you can't do anything is despicable. Did Fox know this going into this arrangement?
I don't know.
Because
I
think the rest of the world knew there was talks of him becoming an owner.
For sure.
And maybe they thought he'd stop if he got the job. I guess not. He's just going to be the owner of a team.
Somehow, some way, the main takeaway I'm seeing on social media from these, requirements and everything else coming out from being the owner, he can no longer come back to play. He can no longer leave retirement. And that's what people seem to be holding on to. And I don't really know why. I don't think that was really on the table. He already did that once, that snip-snap once, and he came back to go 7-9 and lose his family. So I think he's good now, announcing games for Fox. So,
that's way worse than what I did.
That shot was worse.
I don't think so.
That shot was worse.
Well, he did. He went 7-9. His wife was like, "Come on."
Yeah, that's the problem I had.
Hang out with your kids.
I had no problem with the wife comment. It was the 7-9. Why'd you have to bring that up?
That's fair.
I was trying to reach my hand in his box, by the way.
Get out of my box.
In his rectangle. I can't do it.
It looks very. Stay out of his rectangle, dude. What's going on?
Yeah, no box for you.
I got distracted.
I know it's his birthday, but we know how Elliot likes to party based on yesterday. My God.
Did you see how? No, I won't comment on that. Did you see how T. Higgins, the agent controversy, started brewing on Twitter?
He's not changing agents.
Correct.
Okay.
He is not changing agents, but everybody thought he was.
Would have been big.
And that means I think because there were talks of him joining Burrow's agency,
CAA,
and then that obviously would have meant or signaled that maybe he's going to stay, but. Not the case.
He's been with CAA his whole career for marketing and stuff. He's still David Mulligetta representative for football contracts. So nothing changes in that front for the Bengals or a T. Higgins extension or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
But wait, and this is the thing that I don't think people understand. He's going to get Burrow's agent, and that increases the chance of him staying. I totally disagree. Like, this isn't because T doesn't want to stay. It's because I don't think a change of agency changes the Bengals' approach to what they want to do roster-wise when it comes to constructing it with two elite wide receivers. Like, I don't know how that would, and unless I'm wrong, what am I missing? Why would that lead to all of a sudden him wanting to stay?
I think David Mulligetta is a very hard agent to negotiate with, and I think a change in agents would certainly have at least cracked the door open a little bit more. I think as long as Mulligetta is representing T. Higgins, that door is completely closed and locked. I think if he changes representation, it just cracks it a little bit more. I don't necessarily think it would have locked up T. Higgins with the Bengals or made me overly confident that an extension was going to happen, but I do think that if he were to switch agencies, not even just to Burrows, but to quite literally anyone other than Mulligetta, I think it would greatly increase the chances that he signs here, even if that is 0 to 5 or whatever that may be.
Oh, back to me.
Back to you.
So, how much time we got? Oh, well, we got a lot of time left. We got a lot of time to fill. College basketball front. How about this? So Wes Miller, the head coach for the Cincinnati Bearcats, said that Ohio State's coach Jake Diebler was able to get the coaches from Xavier, Cincinnati, and Dayton all on a Zoom call to talk about playing. Not just about charity exhibition games, not just these lazy charity exhibition games. By the way, shout out to charity. Love the charity, love the causes. Don't get me wrong.
That's a good shout out.
But I think some of these programs.
We'll clip that. Don't worry.
To charity. To charity.
Quick shout out to charity.
Yeah, but hiding behind but Ohio State and some of these schools, they're hiding behind the exhibition charity game to go on the road to play at Dayton. Hey, we won't go play you at Dayton. We won't go play you, whatever, unless it's a charity exhibition game. That way, if we lose, we could just say, well, it's an exhibition game. It was for it's for the charity. It wasn't for for keeps. We weren't playing for keeps. We weren't playing for we weren't keeping score, any of that. But no, this is what people have been wanting for a long time. Just that you have Xavier, Cincinnati, Ohio State, Dayton have those 4 programs. Every year should play. We've talked about this forever. Cyclical, obviously rotating through everyone's arenas. I think Dayton has been the biggest holdup in all of this, not because they don't want it, but I think it is one of those, as Cincinnati has moved up in conferences, as Xavier has moved up in conferences, and Ohio State's established in the Big Ten. It really does come down to scheduling when Dayton always acts like, oh, this is such a tough place to come and play. That's why no one wants to come play here. I promise you, I call games for Wright State, okay? That's Nike. This is Wright State. There we go. That's what I meant to point out. All right, so when it comes to Wright State, I sit here and I look at this and I'm like, the same schools that don't want to go play at Dayton don't want to go play at Wright State. And the reason is because you're in the A-10 and you're in the Horizon League. You're not a high major program. It's as simple as that. Stop with the high moral, oh, we're Dayton. No one wants to come play us here because they're afraid to lose. No, because they're not going to go play at an A-10 school. It's as simple as that. I do like, though, that these coaches are getting together to put all of that stuff off to the side. Let's put the business side off to the side. There's a business element to this, don't get me wrong. But I love that these schools are having that conversation. To Chris Holtman's credit, when he was at Ohio State, he had efforted to get that thing rolling as well. But I'm curious to see if Jake Diebler and Ohio State can kind of push that forward. The reason I say Ohio State, they're the big dog, whether you guys like it or not. And I think that for this to happen, I think they have to be the ones that lead the way on it. And it sounds like Jake Diebler is willing to do that.
I hope it happens. I think that would be a fun thing to do. Now the issue would be, again, not to bash Dayton here, but it would be it's a tough loss to explain if you're looking at scheduling and you're trying to do all this. That's one, and you mentioned it. It's just logistically, it's almost not worth playing Dayton. Because it's not worth the risk of losing. It's not worth the risk of doing anything. I don't like playing NKU. I don't like playing Dayton. Just because I am kind of afraid of losing. We lost to Dayton last year on a neutral court that wasn't really neutral because Dayton fans took over the entire arena. So I don't think it would ever happen. And also because of the crosstown shootout, I don't know how that would play if you did a tournament like this. If you did a round-robin type of situation or whatever the logistics of it would be, I think it would almost take away from that crosstown shootout because UC would have to play Xavier every year. Would you play Ohio State and Dayton every year as well? I don't know if those teams are willing to do that. I don't know if UC is willing to do that. It just seems like a lot logistically.
Yeah, it makes it easy. These teams complain so much about how difficult it is to schedule. I mean, why doesn't everyone do everyone a favor and just know that, hey, that's one game we don't have to worry. Every year we know we're going to play one of these 3 teams, and that's going to put us in position. That just makes it – I mean, it is tough to schedule. Every AD I talk to, whether it be mid-major, low major, mid-major, or high major, every AD says it is difficult to schedule, especially if you're Dayton. Beggars can't be choosers. And as far as I'm concerned, Dayton cannot sit here and try to get in the way of this type of thing happening because they want people to come to UD Arena to play. And as you should, but at the same time, You got if Dayton's sitting at the table with Xavier, Cincinnati, and Ohio State, speak when spoken to. You're lucky you're invited to the adult table. You sit there and you do what they tell you to do. You play in the measly old little A10. You don't raise your hand. You don't talk. If Jake Diebler needs a water, go get him a water. Okay. If Wes Miller says, hey, that sun's coming in and blinding me, go shut the blinds for him, Dayton. Go do what you got to do. Okay. I don't want Dayton to be in the way of this at all because I know for a fact that they have been, and that's my problem when it's all said and done.
Do you
cut
think?
You off, Jake? My bad.
No, you're fine.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. I was just saying, do you think they would do it potentially as a round robin, not like necessarily involved in regular season games, and you play it as a tournament as well, and then you'd end up playing Xavier twice in a season?
No, they would not. UC would not play Xavier twice. There's no way. There's no way they would allow it. There's no way they would do it. There's just no chance. That's why logistically I don't think it could happen because unless I guess UC would just play. I guess it could happen. Why not? UC would play Ohio State and Dayton as standalone games, but I don't think making it a tournament would make much sense. Making it a round robin, I think it would have to just be.
That would make it an exhibition. Obviously, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do it as regular games in that case, but that might be a way to make it not affect the crosstown shootout potentially. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of alternatives. Not a huge college basketball guy.
They wouldn't do it twice. They wouldn't play twice.
Or here's an idea. How about Cincinnati, Xavier, and Ohio State? Those are the three locks, and then every year you rotate a fourth Ohio team. You let everybody. You let Miami of Ohio in there. You let Wright State in there. You let Dayton in every once in a while. You say, Dayton, yeah, you're cute enough. Come on over. Come hang out with us for a bit. But you know what? Not every year.
You hate Dayton.
You don't like Dayton.
No, because they are the most arrogant program I've ever come across. They view themselves as something that they are not, and I view them for what they are. And I'm the only one that has the guts to let them know on a year in year out basis that they're not as good as they.
Fair enough.
But
there ain't no stopping Obi Toppin.
Ain't no stopping Obi Toppin.
I love Obi Toppin.
COVID
I love
stopped
Jalen
him.
Crutcher. Duron Holmes. I know Duron. Duron's very cool. Duron's come in and done the show, in the past. He's going to be coming on throughout the season. I might take back some of the stuff I've said today whenever I do talk to Duron. But I'm more of a Duron fan than anything. So there you
That's
go.
fair
I am
enough.
a hypocrite. I have no problem. No shame.
He's in Denver too now, right?
He is in Denver. Earlier when I
So
said
you
that,
are a
I
Nuggets
do
fan.
have.
You
I
are a
do have
Nuggets
reason
fan.
to- Yeah. So
There we go. What's he pulling out?
Look
big
right
league.
Here, look.
Oh,
Those are great
He sent
jerseys.
a sign. Yeah.
Phenomenal
So shout out.
uniforms.
These are my favorite UD jerseys.
Oh,
by
they're
the way.
so
Like, these-
clean.
Yeah. But shout out to old Duron Holmes. I'm so bummed he's not going to be playing this year.
Yeah, that is a bummer. I think it's a good situation for him too.
Stinks.
how's Doug Gottlieb doing with Green Bay, Kenner?
That's the one I'm intrigued about. He tweets a lot. He has hot takes a lot, and I love it. He might be my favorite college basketball coach because of what he does. He coaches the sport that I love the most, and he's a sports talk guy. How can we not be big Doug Gottlieb fans when it's all said and done? I do know this. His job's going to be tough because he has to be perfect. He's taken over a program that the last two head coaches that have taken over, they've had instant success. So if he takes over and they don't get out to a hot start, a lot of people are going to be bringing up the fact that, well, maybe you're so focused on your radio career that you can't put all your attention on this. I'm pulling for Doug Gottlieb. I think he's good for that conference. It's the Horizon League. You need every piece of marketability that you can get. He provides that for him, good or bad. But people, I mean, Green Bay is being mentioned, and the Horizon League is being mentioned on national talk shows across the board. I mean, it's already a valuable addition to the conference, no doubt. Now, it could end up being an embarrassing exit. I don't think it's a great look for the league that you have full-time radio hosts coaching one of your programs. But, hey, at least it's getting some marketability out there. Who knows? But
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's
Do you guys like
pretty
Doug Gottlieb?
I like Doug Gottlieb. I don't know if he's going to be a good head
I think
coach.
it's the most interesting college basketball story outside of the power conferences this year to watch, right? Just see how he does, how he handles the media in his show. And because he said he's still doing his show as normally scheduled and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all transpires, especially if Green Bay, gets off the tracks early or unravels early, how he handles, players playing poorly or anything like that. It wouldn't be nearly as fun if they just rip off like 20 wins and are a really, really good basketball team, and he's just talking about how great they are on his show. I want him to have to dance around some turnovers and bad losses. That'd be more fun to watch.
Yeah, but he tweet, like I said, go look at his tweets. Follow him on Twitter. He's a good follow. He's an interesting follow. And some of those tweets after a loss, he's going to get obliterated for. Let's just put it that way.
For sure.
Anyways. All right, well, could we be done? There's a couple shows we've done recently where we have gone to 12:02. We've gone to 12:02 on more than one
have you
occasion as of
been
late.
back pocketing minutes?
I think you're okay, Kenner. I think you can go.
Oh, so you guys are just
Yeah,
going to keep going?
no,
It's a bad
we'll
look.
wrap it up.
That's
No,
a bad look.
no. We'll be done. No.
No,
We'll be good.
Happy early day, Kenner. Take it off.
All right. Kiss my ass, both of you. Happy
Love you.
birthday, Jake.
Thank you.
Elliot, just leave my laptop alone.
You're gonna have. I hear it right now.
Fuck off. Bye.
No, he actually left. Well, for this episode of Off the Bench, that's going to do it for us.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Jacob Tissanelli, Rear, and Casey McAllister still here working towards the buzzer.
Casey, send us off.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
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 Box lunch, 1 p.m.